I'm continuing to present on the series of borderline personality disorder videos based on my book called Borderline Personality Disorder: Survival Guide from Chaos to Authenticity. In this video, we're talking about what I refer to as the silver lining. Healthcare problems can be broken down into various categories, including chronic, acute, and emergency. However, chronic issues may have periods of relative calm, so that even cancer can enter periods of remission. Hope is crucial for the borderline, believing that with proper support and time, he will enjoy a renewed sense of well-being. According to Hesiod, the famous ancient writer, hope is the only virtue that Pandora did not allow to escape from the jar. The problem, however, is that the borderline suffering from psychological pain gains little or no comfort when told that pain will diminish given enough time. I have had pain because of different medical issues over the years. The most fascinating aspect of pain is that when there is terrible pain, which sometimes lasts for several days, it is difficult to really remember enjoying life without pain. Similarly, when feeling perfectly healthy, biking 100 miles a week, I cannot recall the physical or psychological feeling of pain. Moreover, I must confess that when I'm feeling great, pain seems so foreign that when a client talks about his pain, it may be challenging to relate to the other person's suffering, aside from clinical sympathy. Without hope, the borderline has nothing, and if he has nothing, he is left only with pain. Symptoms are complicated, especially because they appear differently in different people, with different degrees of seriousness. For example, insomnia is a widely noted symptom in several psychiatric diagnoses, and it can also exist as a problem in its own right, called primary insomnia. But insomnia affects different people in different ways. A writer who lives alone may find that his most productive hours for writing occur late into the night. For the writer, the insomnia is egosyntonic. That is, the insomnia is in harmony with his professional and personal needs. In contrast, a father who has to wake up and be alert every day, arriving at his factory where he works at 8 a.m., may find that insomnia prohibits him from rising in the morning or properly functioning at the factory, leading to repeated reprimands or even employment termination, so that he can no longer feed his family, making the insomnia ego-dystonic. While BPD symptoms may seem negative and frightening, there are ways to consider, interpret, and even utilize the symptoms in a transformative and even positive way. The Yiddish phrase, Gamzu Latova, this too for the best, suggests that even negative occurrences in life can be interpreted to mean something positive and hopeful. And I'm going to provide a whole bunch of examples to show this. The first is sensitivity to emotional and social cues, especially negative ones, which is very typical for borderlines. This can be interpreted as empathy for moods and thoughts of others, especially the suffering of others. Because the borderline can be quite sensitive or even hypersensitive to emotional and social cues, and even facial expressions, it can cause him to feel uneasy in social situations and even act or react in inappropriate ways. However, in a positive way to interpret this is that borderlines have a capacity for empathy and the need and understanding of others in a deeply, at times, intuitive way. Another example is impulsivity and reactivity. For borderlines, this can be interpreted as spontaneity and excitement. Impulsivity and reactivity may sound negative, though spontaneity and excitement can have positive connotations. There is something very positive about people who can be spontaneous, curious, and create excitement in their own lives and the lives of others as a means to explore new things, people, ideas, and places, including new and unusual restaurants, museums, and much else. Some borderlines lead their lives to the fullest, putting aside a conservative lifestyle and parochial values in favor of carpe diem. Another issue for borderlines that we spoke about earlier is, of course, lack of boundaries. but this can be interpreted as the ability to merge. While most people dip their toe in the water before making connections and new relationships, borderlines may be more willing to jump right in, making connections and meeting new people, even while perhaps blurring boundaries. This also allows the borderline to fall easily in love and see things in ways that are new and different from other people, while often wishing to share their experiences, thoughts, and feelings. Another major issue for borderlines that we've discussed is intensely emotional. They can be intensely emotional, and that can be interpreted, though, as passionate and lead to unexpected creativity. A religious borderline who was away from home with his family realized that the family traveled without a prayer book. Deeply missing prayer time, he wrote from memory those prayers that were most meaningful, allowing the family to have something to read for Sunday morning services. Another example, rage, which we see in borderlines, can be interpreted as passion. A client often expressed rage at the indifference of large corporations towards the environment. Rather than simply remain angry, this borderline adopted compassion toward the environment and became a lifelong and tireless advocate, making a positive difference for the environment that others could emulate. Vengeful, well, this can be interpreted as a strong sense of right and wrong. Borderlines who feel slighted may harbor an intense sense of anger, seeking revenge, but this can also be understood as the borderline having a strong sense of right and wrong. The valiant knight who wishes to avenge the harmed damsel identifies with the harm she suffers and goes on a selfless quest to avenge her honor. Fear of abandonment, another seemingly negative aspect of borderlines, can be interpreted as strong personal attachments. Fear of abandonment can also be understood as the borderline enjoying a very strong sense of interpersonal attachment to another person, removing it from the singular self-centered to a dynamic, perhaps healthy bond. Neediness, another major topic we've looked at with borderlines, can be reinterpreted in a positive way as a willingness to please. Similar to the fear of abandonment, which is often conceptualized as a self-centered issue, neediness can be reconceptualized as a willingness to please, making a particular effort to ensure an important relationship remains stable, healthy, and secure. And the last example is unstable sense of self. A very core feature of borderlines can be reinterpreted as flexibility. By virtue of the borderline's unstable sense of self, it can allow him to be quite flexible in some ways, bending to the needs of others in a sometimes docile and compliant manner. What I wanted to show in this video was that, the symptoms and the criteria we looked at in the DSM and those that I noted separately have such a negative connotation. They seem so pejorative, but there are ways to interpret it, the very best aspects of the borderline's personality in a positive way that can be shown to be healthy and assist the borderline on their path towards gaining authenticity.